Behind-the-scenes live stream about to kick off here momentarily. We have stand by. Let me see. Hey, Joe, do we have a contest today or no? We're about to kick off this show. We got a West Michigan Live with me, Justin Barclay, on the radio. If this is your first time here, you'll hear that. 9 to 10, and then 10, we kick off the after show, which we record our podcast here live. That's how it works. Going live, folks. Stand by. Join the chat this morning. Lots of big things happening. Well, good morning, folks. Lots to discuss. We appreciate you being here with us this morning. It's never a dull moment these days. We'll break down all the news you need to hear, and some of it you won't hear anywhere else. Beautiful day high atop Grand Rapids in West Michigan this morning. Downtown, the sun is shining. So we're ready to let it fly, let it rip. A Tech Tuesday, we'll talk to Trent Kennedy coming up in just a moment. Some startling revelations, new tech you're going to want to hear about affecting your privacy, and some weird end-of-the-world type stuff you're going to want to hear as well. But here we go. Nonetheless, folks, let's get things rolling. We are completely and fully unredacted.
News, weather, and traffic. Stories of the day. We're talking about what matters most in West Michigan and beyond. This is the Big Three. Now today's Big Three.
The stories that matter most. You'll be talking about these around the water cooler, the dinner table, no matter where you are. Even though they try to suppress them from you, you seek them out or they find you. The stories that matter most. Our Big Three. Powered by our good friends at Heartland Home Mortgage. They're helping folks in more ways than ever right now, especially during the challenging times. Maybe you need a refi. Maybe you need to get your credit in order so you could save a little bit of money, and maybe, I don't know, maybe other options for you as well. It's worth a 5-minute phone call to find out what they can do for you. Call Dave Galloway and the team today at 616-974-9105 or go online to hhmlending.com.
Number one.
They've scrubbed it. NASA said no-go yesterday to the unmanned Artemis rocket launch for an engine issue. We'll talk more about that coming up in the Tech Talk segment, but I don't know if you know this. Interestingly enough, this rocket was set to launch initially back in 2016, but as the government does, their projects always seem to drag a bit, don't they? Leaving a little bit to be desired.
Number two.
He wants an immediate redo. President Trump said the 2020 election needs to be redone following recent disclosures about how the FBI influenced reporting about Hunter Biden's laptop. In fact, there is even more information about this morning. An FBI agent stepping down yesterday. Did Lester Holt cover this last night? Remind me, did he cover this? No. A Trump activist, FBI special agent who opened Trump investigation was reportedly escorted out of the bureau headquarters Friday. A 25-year veteran, of the force, reported ties to the Clintons and Obamas. More on that coming up in just moments as well.
Number 3.
More than 121,000 energy customers statewide without power this morning. Though, to make up for it all, consumers, even though you're paying more than ever for your electricity, and it's not on when you need it, consumers hosting an event today in Kalamazoo to giving those impacted free ice cream. So they'll make up with it with a free ice cream cone. You can't make this stuff up. Hey, just wait till everyone starts plugging their Tesla in, folks. I mean, it'll be all out chaos. We can't even keep things running the way it is now. Now look, storms are nothing new. These things happen, but yet, I think it's important to note that the world would shut down. Did you ever see the Tesla stations they've got at the Meyer stores and where you can charge your car? We got one by my house, and so you can go over there and charge your car now. There's this weird thing that's next to it. It's like a fence. It's like a little fenced-in area, and you always wonder what is behind that fence. You ever taken a peek? Well, there are pictures floating around on online now of what those are. In fact, there's video and audio of what's behind that fence running. Turns out it's a diesel generator. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up, folks. Lots to get to this morning. We're gonna get to all of it. We're gonna run through everything, including a Rona report that you won't want to miss as well. You can always jump on the phone line with our calls at 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. And also the talkback feature with that microphone. Just tap that microphone, the iHeartRadio app, right next to the play button and sound off. You can rant, rave, ask questions, whatever it might be. Love to hear from you. So, President Trump, weighing it out, and I think very interesting comment yesterday that we need an immediate redo. Now, we have a couple of different things that have happened. Number one, we have Mark Zuckerberg, who's come out and said, and I played the audio just the other day, but Zuckerberg has come out and said, oh, yes, the FBI came to us and they asked us to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. They came to us the other day and they asked us, he said, this was was it probably the middle of 2020. So he's on Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan Experience. And I don't know if he was imbibing in the devil's lettuce like Elon did at that one point. I just think he slipped. Or maybe if you got the tinfoil hat on, maybe you're thinking maybe he told us for a reason. Maybe there's a reason he felt comfortable talking about it. Interestingly enough, though, he does admit.
Just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of
Russian propaganda
that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
The truth is about to come
our
out.
protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation. We also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for the, I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased.
They killed the story. You could post it, but unlike Twitter, where they just banned it all together and they would ban you. No, Facebook would let you post it. They just wouldn't show it to anybody. So he's come out and said the FBI has told them not to allow the story to come out. The FBI is telling social media. We were told these are private companies. They could do whatever they want. But we now have the proof the government was working, folks, inside the unelected bureaucrat deep state factions of the government were working to suppress the story about Hunter Biden's laptop. We also know now, and this is interesting, that there was an FBI agent that apparently has stepped down now. He stepped down. This was after, well, what is it? Was this Friday, I think, is when this occurred? Tebow is his name. He has stepped down and since gone away. I guess this is their way of making it look like, oh, yeah, we're going to take care of these people that are rogue. I mean, it's a full house cleaning that needs to happen, folks. A full house cleaning. This is Trump's statement on the matter. So now it comes out conclusively that the FBI buried the Hunter Biden laptop story before the election, knowing that if they didn't, Trump would have easily won the 2020 presidential election. He wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social, yesterday. This is massive fraud and election interference at a level never seen before in our country. Remedy. Declare the rightful winner or, and this would be the minimal solution, declare the 2020 election irreparably compromised and have a new election immediately. He also wrote, a poll concluded last week, and this is the interesting piece of it all. You factor all of this in. No matter what they've done to push their messages, folks throughout the country, Democrats and Republicans, still feel that there were shenanigans in the 2020 election. A poll concluded last week found nearly 80% of Americans who were surveyed said that truthful coverage of the laptop story would have changed the outcome of the 2020 election. 80% of Americans. So who is this guy that just recently took a hike? Who is this FBI agent that was given the boot because of all this? What's the truth? What's the real story on it? And there's more behind the scenes. By the way, they're still arguing over papers and documents. You know that I told you yesterday, many are making the case that Trump had a lot of documents, in fact, at one point, whether they were taken in the raid or not, that proved the Russian collusion hoax was just that. He had documents that may have proved the involvement between Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, and he was preparing those for his lawsuit. Any chance he had more information on what happened in the FBI with the Hunter Biden laptop in the election as well? Oh, it's just getting started, folks. We're just heating things up. We're just firing things up here. Don't go anywhere. Let's learn more about that FBI agent. Let's dig in. The stories you won't hear anywhere else. By the way, it's all coming up next. All right, folks. Wow. What a morning. I told you never a dull moment, did I not? Now, some of you may be thinking, of course I knew this the whole time. But there are folks that are going to hear this for the first time today. So make sure you click share. Make sure you click share on the Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter. No matter where you're watching, YouTube, possibly the behind-the-scenes live stream. Sherry, good morning. Good morning, Colette and Cindy and Tyler and Laura and Jesse and Michelle. Sherry? Appreciate y'all being here with us this morning. Let me check in with the Rumblers. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Fedora the Explorer. Brumbies fan, good to see you. Jackie Ray, Nancy, good to see you too. Hello, Mayor. Blue Angel, Lady Blah Blah. Kimmy D, such a time as this. Mary Contrary. Lots of folks jumping in this morning. Appreciate y'all being here too. And the folks on Getter. Leslie, Sheila, good morning. Tanya, don't forget to be brave. Free at heart. Terry, Tanya, and free at heart. Did I say that one twice? Maybe I did. Oh, great. I've got a couple other things here. Let me just get them together. And they'll be rocking and rolling. We check our talkbacks. Boom, 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 boom. All right, let me try this again because it looks like, that's a little. Appreciate y'all being here with us today. Again, this is the behind the scenes live stream. That means what you're watching today actually is just that. It's raw. It's unredacted. It's footage of us hanging out between commercials, and we can't really play. You probably don't want to hear some of the commercials. So we're not going to play the commercials that are playing. But you and I get to have a chat. I work on things behind the scenes here. We get ready to go back on the air. And that's what we'll do. Okay. Ooh, new news. New news. All right. Here we go, folks. Back on the air. We got some news. Some new news. In fact, this just came in the last hour or so. It looks like while we were getting ready for the show. Grassley, Johnson, a couple of senators calling for Facebook to turn over communications with FBI over the Hunter Biden story. So they are now saying, you need to turn up. We need free and fair and complete transparency over all of it. You've got to give us all of the information, put it out there. We need to know what happened. That's all coming amidst a story. Top FBI agent resigns amid claims he shielded Hunter Biden from the probe by the FBI and that Hunter Biden laptop. There he is. If you're watching behind the scenes live stream, you can see his ugly mug. He is on the screen. Now, FBI agent Director Ray admitted back in, what was this? Well, it was a couple of weeks ago, I guess. He admitted there was bias in the Hunter Biden laptop investigation.
Isn't it true that Mr. Tebow, Agent Tebow, and FBI Supervisory Intelligence Analyst Brian Otan covered up derogatory information about Mr. Hunter Biden while working for the FBI?
Well, again, I want to be very careful not to interfere with ongoing personnel matters.
Be very careful.
I should say,
yes, you should, that
when I read the letter that describes the kinds of things that you're talking about, I found it deeply troubling. And
it is troubling.
And it is
And
totally.
it's not about their political beliefs.
Right.
It's not about their political beliefs. It's about that this is a senior employee at the FBI with years of experience going on social media and tweeting this kind of stuff.
Isn't that something? Yeah, no, he made his views very, very public at one point. But again, this is a story that you're just not going to hear anywhere. Lester Holt on the Nightly News isn't going to cover this. Your local TV station, they're not going to cover this. Top FBI agent at the Washington field office reportedly resigned from his post last week after facing intense scrutiny over allegations he helped shield Hunter Biden from criminal investigations into his laptop and business dealing. Timothy Thibault, an FBI assistant special agent in charge, was allegedly forced out after he was accused of political bias in his handling of the probes involving President Biden's son. That's according to the Washington Times. Report sources on Monday. The agent was escorted out of the field office by at least two headquarters-looking types. This is according to the report last Friday. The source is saying that Thibault and the FBI didn't immediately respond to the Post's request for comment on Monday. Thibault, a 25-year veteran, already been on leave for a month after Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Chuck Grassley, started raising concerns. Oh, there's more to the story. This isn't it. There's more to the story, and we're just getting the very surface of it. Folks making a point in the chat, he can't just resign. He needs to be investigated. He needs to face some major consequences. In fact, he should probably see some jail time in some of those January 6th dungeons out in D.C., shouldn't he? Oh, no, that's only for Republicans. Those are only for Trump supporters. Those are not for the people responsible for the very coup run on this country back in 2020. Folks, that's what it seems like anyway. Am I right? We are at a point in time. I don't know if there's any looking back. It's all coming out because that's how these things work, and quicker than they ever expected. More coming up. All right. Yes, I appreciate y'all being here with us today and sharing this, because this is one of the biggest stories I think we may hear in the history of this nation. All right. Let me check in with Trent. He's coming up next. We got a tech talk coming up and stories you will not want to miss. Trent Kennedy. How are you, my friend? Good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Wait a second. I got to turn. We got some music playing in here somewhere. Let me turn this off. There we go. That's better. How are you, brother? No, I can't hear you. Remember last time there was a thing with the settings? And you might have to go and change your microphone in the default, from default to whatever you're using. If you go the settings and then audio settings. Jill says, did you hear about Benton refusing to remove 25,000 dead people from the voter rolls? Indeed, I did, Jill. And the person responsible for the lawsuit that's taking place right now in that particular subject will join us tomorrow, 9:30. The group is called Public. Let me make sure I get this straight. Trent is saying it won't let him in, and his mute button is grayed out. Hey, try to refresh it. See if that helps you. Boom, 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 boom. J. Christian Adams from the Public Interest Legal Forum is the name of the organization. He'll join us tomorrow. It looks like about 9:30. I hear something there.
It's working out, Justin. Good old
There
reverse.
you are. Appreciate you, brother. I knew we could get that worked out. The tech guy has to know how to work tech, and I thought there is no challenge. It's never a challenge for Trent Knibbie. I know you got that. But this, I don't know but this program has been doing that to people lately. Who knows? Probably just a glitch in the machine or something. But thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Appreciate you being here with us. Hang on one second. You may want to angle your camera up a little bit because it's cutting your head off. Yeah, that's better. Good deal. Good deal. Can you still hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good deal. Just wanted to make sure. He was muted. So I got to say thank you to a few folks today. I got some folks we got to give shout outs to. Oh, you know, there's something even bigger too. In the state of Michigan, I got to blow open. It's just never enough time to get all this together. So we have Michigan Secretary of State loses round in fight over dead people on voter rolls. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Jocelyn Benson failed to convince a judge to dismiss a case that would force the state to remove 25,975, almost 26,000 people, dead people, from voter rolls. That's a big one. The state of Michigan is withholding a detailed report. Whitmer and her crime family withholding a report on their handling of the pandemic. They went and had a third-party, out-of-state company do a report. Apparently, it came back not so hot because they would release it, right? We would say they're probably going to release it. Nope. Turns out they refuse to release it. So we've got that coming up. Try and hit that. And a full Tech Tuesday segment filled with tech talk you're definitely going to want to hear. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Okay. Now, let me say a big thank you, by the way, to some folks who are supporters over on Locals. If you haven't already done it yet, go on over and check out Locals. You're going to love it. There is lots of new and exclusive material and content happening over on Locals. Locals, the one and only place where I'm going to be doing this. We have seen so much censorship from big tech, folks. I can't. We cannot take the chance anymore. We have to get out and in full force build the lifeboats. We don't have time anymore. In fact, yesterday I posted this fiery clip from Christina Caramo, candidate for Secretary of State. She absolutely scorches Jocelyn Benson. This is from the Red Wave Party over the weekend in Lansing at the Capitol. Great video. A couple other things that are exclusive that I put just there. So I'd love to share those with you. I want to say thank you to some yearly supporters. Grandma Milk and Sugar, Nana Teresa, Spid, Big R Reagan. Now, is that Ronnie? Is it Ronnie? Sam 16, Denise, and Katie. Some big yearly annual supporters. So what is Locals? It's a brand new platform that for us, it's been around for a while. Numerous folks are using it. You can get to it for free, but you can also support us. People have been asking about, how can I support you? Well, I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But go on over, check out Locals, because I'm going to post a lot of stuff for free. You can check it out. Love to fill you in on the rest of that. That's all coming out, by the way, as we build the lifeboats. Stand by, folks. Back on the air. Welcome in, folks. If you're suffering power outages, I said 6 o'clock this morning, 121,000 people out, power out here in the state of Michigan, no matter whether it's storms, man-made, or natural disasters. Of course, it's possible with the grid and the way the state of the things are these days that we can continue to lose power. You'll have issues. What if you could stay connected? Turns out you can. ProTech Heating and Cooling, offering whole home generators. They can set you up, get you on so that you are turned on and you never lose power. ProTech Heating and Cooling. They're our good friends and sponsors of the next segment here this morning. Of course, we always appreciate them. You can find more at protechgr.com or give them a call. The folks I trust, ProTech Heating and Cooling. So before we get to our Tech Talk segment, I've got to run through a few more of the facts on this story. The FBI agent who stepped down on Friday because he was caught, he was busted. Senator Grassley, one of the folks who outed him, Tim Tebow was his name, not Tim Tebow, not the football player. Tim Tebow is how they are pronouncing it. Reportedly forced out after being accused of political bias in the handling of Hunter Biden probe. Now, he, just like others in the FBI, had gotten, but now you would think an FBI agent, you would know better what you post and shouldn't post on social media. He was one of the guys that got busted. He allegedly tried to kill off a valid avenue of investigation of possible Hunter Biden criminality until at least 1 month before the election. We've got that along with the fact that the FBI went to the folks at Facebook, God knows only, probably Twitter as well, all the social media. Of course, if they're going to the social media, you would think they're probably going to the dinosaur media as well and saying, look, please, whatever you do, don't cover this story. It's Russian misinformation. They got involved where they never should have. In a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray in July, Grassley said that Tebow and the FBI supervisory intelligence analyst Brian Auten were allegedly involved in a scheme to undermine derogatory information connected to Hunter Biden by falsely suggesting it was disinformation. Tebow allegedly ordered the matter closed without providing a valid reason as required by FBI guidelines and subsequently attempted to improperly mark the matter in FBI systems so that it could not be opened in the future, Grassley wrote. It was the same month the Post first started reporting on Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop, which included troves of emails related to his shady business overseas and those dealings. According to the New York Post, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg revealed last week as well that the social media giant suppressed the Post's bombshell Hunter Biden report following a vague FBI warning about possible Russian propaganda. Basically, the background here is that the FBI, I think he said, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. Zuckerberg told the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. He added, we thought there was a lot of Russian propaganda in 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump that's similar to that, so just be vigilant. That's what the FBI told them. The FBI knew that the laptop was real back in 2019, and this Tebow guy suppressed it. Now, he's resigned, probably gets to keep his pension. Justice ought to occur in this matter. We've got folks now in prison, in jail, really, in dungeons in D.C. This is the craziness of it. The FBI interfered, along with Facebook and other social media organizations, interfered in the 2020 election. There were shenanigans because of the FBI and their interference in the 2020 election. This is what it appears like. People saw those shenanigans. They cried foul, went to the Capitol on January 6th, and those people are in jail today because they were there, just being there. Yeah, that's where we are. President Trump, meanwhile, has called for an immediate redo. Now, whether or not that's likely or whether that gets done or not, I can't say. I'm just telling you, probably chances are slim to none. But I will tell you that this is all part of knowing exactly as it starts to come out, exactly what happened behind the scenes. These folks must be held accountable. We must have accuracy, truth, and transparency through every bit of the process when it comes to our elections. And we cannot allow the FBI or anyone else to get involved and sway our elections. In fact, some might say that's treason.
Hack into the latest in tech and how it affects you and your world. This is Tech Talk Tuesday on Wood Radio's West Michigan Live.
Powered by our good friends at Affordable Eye Store, Lake Michigan Drive in Standale. Trent Kennedy is here with us, along with the folks at GR Tech as well. And Trent, appreciate you being here with us today. Some of the biggest stories we're looking at. It's never a dull moment these days. So let's start with this crazy story about a social media company getting a visit from the FBI, and the FBI says, be on the lookout for some of these things. This is really concerning. I understand that you want to make sure that there isn't Russian interference or Chinese interference, but it appears there were American interference and maybe even from the FBI, the social media companies. This seems like something that they're used to working with these folks on a daily basis anyway. This was no strange occurrence, as far as Zuckerberg put it when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Justin, it's plausible deniability, done wrong, I guess. They tried to be nonchalant and tried to share some valid concerns that obviously weren't explained very well, I guess, as a minimum.
So this is happening on a daily. In fact, I saw in our very own situation, my Facebook account, we stream live, behind the scenes live stream, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter. We stream live every day this show, the behind the scenes live stream. Facebook, about a month before the primaries here in Michigan, took my ability to stream live away. Never really gave me a reason for it. And members of Congress have not been able to get an answer as to why. We still don't know. Facebook won't tell us. It's no mistake, I think, no coincidence that this happened a month before the primary election. And then just days after the primary was over, we got our ability back to stream live again. They put us on a 30-day ban. I guarantee we'll see more of this leading up to November. But we see a constant, whether it be Twitter saying you can share this story or you can't share the New York Post saying that the New York Post couldn't share a story. Absolutely incredible. We now learn what happened behind the scenes with Facebook. This is happening all too often. A lot of people are saying where the government is interfering or colluding with these private companies, that is a clear First Amendment violation. But these tech companies, they have tremendous power. They can do things that we never dreamed of before.
Justin, when I heard that Facebook had a direct link to members of Congress for support, quote unquote, that really made me think about why and what. And on the surface, it might sound like something good, but on the back end, doesn't everybody need an equal level of support, of explanation, of answers? Why do only members of Congress get some specific level of support? What do they use it for? Who are they working with? That's something that would really need a good explanation for me.
Yeah, well, Facebook isn't going to tell you. It could sound like you just call them up or go down the street and knock on the door. They're not going to tell us what they're doing and what they're up to. They wield tremendous power. And to me, to see it used in the way that it's been used and abused in this case, it really is unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's interfering in elections. It's doing the very same thing that they're accusing the folks on the right of doing. And it appears, in all intents and purposes, that it might, in fact, be a coup.
Justin, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. We should all care about who's influencing social media. If you look at the power that they have to suppress stories, if we look at their connections, you look at the big three, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and the companies that they own. If an election is made by a few percentage points, and you look at the effect that those big three have on an election, that's an incredible power to wield that they shouldn't be granted that power.
Got another couple of things here that we want to make sure that we cover today. The FTC is suing a data company over health concerns. Walk me through this story, because Trent, I know our data is more important than ever before. People will look at a company like Tesla and think, this company's so valuable, they're worth billions and billions of dollars. But it's not because of the cars. What people don't realize is it's because of the data. That, along with this, was it Roomba, the robot vacuum company that was sold to Amazon in the last couple of weeks, that was sold at a big price, and Amazon wanted that because of the data involved with these companies. Data is a very valuable thing. It's very important. We should own our own data, but it turns out it's leaking like a sieve. Companies are harvesting it and selling it to the highest bidder in a lot of cases. The FTC getting involved in this one here.
So, Justin, what's frustrating about this story is that there's massive data brokers who are quite sketchy. They're not transparent. They don't tell you where this data comes from. So they collect this data from many sources. They don't want to tell you where it's coming from. It could be as simple as the weather app on your phone that you use to check the weather is reporting in your location data. They get it from thousands of different sources. They're collecting this data, they're organizing it with computer systems, they're cross-checking it with other data points, so it's extremely accurate. They have this data for 5+ years in some cases, and they're publicly anyways, probably more than that, and they're selling this on the open markets. So the Trade Commission, the other government agencies are just finally saying, hey, this is something that shouldn't be done or can't be done. We should regulate this. But again, this data has been mined and sold for many years, since the 90s, and they're just starting to say, hey, this might not be a good idea. They're a little late to this, and that information is all over the place, and it's done in plain sight, and it's not even illegal yet. We're talking about legal practices that have not been regulated. They've not been made public. You can dig through these stories, Justin. You can't even find anything about exactly which apps or where they're getting this data from to protect yourself.
Trent Knibbie, Affordable Life Store, Lake Michigan Drive in Standout. Is there anything that we can do as somebody who understands, you understand the apps, you understand the devices, what can we do to protect ourselves, or do we just have to not use them altogether?
Yeah, that's one option, Justin. But in today's world, we need our devices to stay connected and, soon start our cars and all those things. So we need to resist that massive rapid change where everything either has to be from some environmental or government regulation standpoint, or just even a convenience. We have to be willing to trade off a minor convenience for something that's quote unquote old fashioned and might take an extra second or two of time. We're changing on a pace of technology that cannot keep up with the security and the proper deployment of it. I'm not against technology. I appreciate all the advances in medical and healthcare and other life-saving technologies, but the government, the people, us myself, we can hardly keep up with the pace of technology. That has to slow slightly to allow technology to be properly developed to move forward.
They scrubbed the launch of NASA's Artemis rocket. Some sort of engine issue. There's an interesting article out by CNET today that says there's a lot more behind the scenes happening. In fact, this rocket was supposed to launch back in 2016. Government involved, and wow, they just don't do anything efficient. They don't hardly do anything effectively except for get in the way, folks. The story that you won't hear when they talk about this rocket coming up, we'll get the latest on that. Trent Knibbie wraps things up with our Tech Tuesday segment. After this, it's West Michigan Live. What radio?
Where the truth isn't negotiable. It's West Michigan Live with Justin Barclay on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Getting mauled by the Bears in the stock.
All right, Trent. Hey, I'll wrap this up and do one more thing. I got to tell you, whoever is clunking and banging around in the background, we can hear them for whatever reason. So whatever's happening, I don't know if it's because the mic is on your computer or the mic is on, I don't know, but it's picking it up. So just want to give you the heads up on that. And then we'll do this last story and we'll wrap up. We got so much, even tech stories today to get to that we're probably going to have to wait till next week to do. Scientists grow synthetic embryo with brain and beating heart for the first time. This is a crazy story. AI found hidden pools in France. That story's also kind of interesting. There's some deep fake news out there as well. We'll talk about it all coming up here in just a little bit, but may have to put some of those on hold for next time. May have to put some of those on hold for next time. Probably only going to have about like a minute or so left when we come back with Trent. But we do have a jam-packed after show today to get to. A Rona report you won't want to miss. Stories out of Michigan that still need to get covered. Yeah. We do our best to get to it all. Make sure you click share if you're watching today over on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, no matter where you are, YouTube even, a Getter. Make sure you click share. And, of course, the other thing that is helpful is if you are watching on Rumble, make sure you click that Rumble Plus button and click subscribe. You can click the join locals as well. We'll talk more about that coming up here in just a little bit. But we have to start looking at alternatives and making our switches over to different places. We've built the lifeboats little by little here and there, streaming on Rumble. That's another good place for us to be, right? So Facebook takes us down. We can make sure that we are there. But we've got to build the lifeboats. We see the collusion that's occurring right now. Stand by, folks. Here we go. A jam-packed after show still to come today. We've got lots to cover. A Rona report you won't want to miss. Lots to discuss at 10 when we kick off the after show on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, all those great places, as well as YouTube. Wrapping up our segment here, Trent Kennedy, Affordable Ice Store, Lake Michigan Drive, and Standown, along with Grand River Tech. And you passed me this great article. NASA scrubbed their Artemis launch yesterday, that big rocket. But Trent, I thought it was interesting, some of the things that were noted in this article. This thing was supposed to launch in 2016, 6 years ago, and it didn't. Anything the government does, they really don't do fast or effectively or anything else, unless it's, it comes to taxing you, taking your money, that sort of thing. They're really good at that. But tell me about this. What were some of the things that stood out the most to you in this article?
So, Justin, they're not really alluding to the exact issues. I don't have any insider knowledge on that of why it's scrubbed or if Friday's relaunch window is going to work out or not for them. But this rocket, what surprised me is that the budget for this was $10 billion. It's already at $20 billion officially, and there's many other offices that think the program itself in a couple of years is going to amass closer to $100 billion. And you got to remember, this is a single test flight for this rocket. It's winner fail, and a year later they're supposed to be putting people on this thing. And it's only 15% more power, you might say lift capacity, which is the magic thing to get into space, is lift capacity, than the rockets, that Apollo missions that were sent to the moon. So you would think 50 years later they would have a 50%, 100%, 500% capacity increase. You look at everything of technology that's changed, and they're trying to eke out a 15% improvement, and they're way over budget, way behind schedule. It's very frustrating.
It is really frustrating, but it's anything else the government does. Par for the course. Trent, thank you. I know if people have questions about their devices or maybe their security, whether it comes to their personal private security or maybe even their business, Affordable Light Store, Grand River Tech, Lake Michigan Drive, and Standale, always willing to help. Trent, I appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you so much, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Justin.
You got it. Make it a great day. God bless. Yes, folks, the after show is on the way. It's the show after the show. That's why we call it the after show. Lots to cover, lots to discuss. In fact, one of the things that we're probably going to get into, I think eventually, actually tomorrow, we'll have somebody coming on to talk about this. He is with the very group responsible. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has lost the first round in a legal fight over dead people. She wants to keep dead people on the voter rolls. She has failed to convince a judge to dismiss the case. So somebody brought this up, and she said, no. Not only do I want dead people on the rolls, but I want your lawsuit thrown out. The judge says no. And not just a few dead people, folks. Nearly 26,000 deceased people are still on the voter rolls here in Michigan. We'll talk to great J. Christian Adams, who's with the Public Interest Legal Forum, that group who has filed the case and refuses to let it go because they want this taken care of. Fighting for you. Benson wants it removed. She wants it all dismissed. A case brought against her in November 2021 by the Public Interest Legal Forum for her failure to clean up the state's voter registration rolls in an alleged violation of Section 8 of the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. She moved to dismiss the case back a week or so back. It was denied. The U.S. District Court for the Western District, Michigan, the court also denying motions to intervene filed by the Detroit Downriver chapter of the A. Philip Randolph Institute. The Michigan Alliance for Retired Americans and Rise, Inc. Additionally, PILF's suit seeks to force Benson to provide documentation for her efforts to remove deceased registrants from the voter rolls. So show us what you've done. Public Interest Legal Forum notified Benson of the problem in September 2020 and again in November that year, a year before it filed its lawsuits. The foundation provided Benson the names of nearly 26,000 voters who had died but were still on the voter rolls. Why is that important? Because if we do not remove these people from the voter rolls, they can be kept on and they may vote. Lord, when I die, don't let me vote Democrat. That's all. That's all I can say. Holy smokes. Keeping those folks on there because, well, they got a lot of work to do coming up in November. We'll get down to the bottom of it, hold them all accountable. Coming up, folks, the after show, the show after the show in just moments. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, all the usual places, plus YouTube. Join us over there. Love to see you. We can continue these conversations next. A Rona Report and more. Back tomorrow morning live on the radio at 9:06, God willing. Make it a great day. God bless, folks. All right. Click a couple of buttons and we'll be ready to rock on the after show, the show after the show. Only stream us live at justinbarclay.com, the video and the audio. Here we go. Welcome into the after show. It's the show after the show here in Michigan, folks. There is just never a dull moment. In fact, we have exclusive new details. State of Michigan, Whitmer and her Whitmer crime family withholding a detailed report on the pandemic response here in Michigan. Apparently, they didn't get such a good grade, and they don't want you to know about that. We'll talk about that in more depth a little bit later, part of our Rona report. They're hiding it. They've got the report. They've had it for a while. In fact, I saw this. This was sent to me yesterday. I'm like, this is really interesting. And I checked around, confirmed with a couple other sources that heard the very same thing. Oh, it's not good news. Not good news for Whitmer and the Whitmer crime family. Speaking of families, Hunter Biden. Not good news for Hunter and his daddy, Joe. The news is getting out. The news is making its way out. Folks are finding out. Stories are leaking on the daily. Stories that they'll never show you on the nightly news with Lester Holt. They'll never show you on your local TV station. Channel 8, 13, 7, whatever. They're not going to share these stories here locally. You just won't see them. You won't see them. So I will be doing our best to make sure that you do. I want to thank our sponsors today before we get things started. Patriotswitch.com. Now's a great time to make the switch. As you know, these mainstream media sources, the fake news that they push through, anytime you buy something at the grocery store, the big box store, anytime you buy something, even when you look down those aisles of a store that you think is maybe locally owned, and you think to yourself, well, I could get some good products here. Time you look through those aisles, you'll find there's a bunch of these made by big conglomerates that are owned by just a handful of other folks. Anytime you buy, let's see, anything like Pepsid, Tylenol, Band-Aid, Lactate, Neutrogena, Aveeno, any of those things, Visine, Imodium. Do you know that they're all owned by one company? You think those are different brands? They're all owned by one company, Johnson & Johnson. Same goes for various different food, Cheerios, Total, Chex, Kix, Lucky Charms. That's all General Mills. Think about it. All of these big conglomerates. We're talking about just a handful of companies that own all of these different brands. And, BlackRock and Vanguard, these big private equity firms, they have their hands in all of it, and they are controlling things behind the scenes. This is why we've seen what we've gone through the last couple of years. Folks, it's time to fight back. And people are. You can vote with your dollars now. It's more important than ever before. You can now buy from a family-owned company, Patriot-owned, made in the USA. Folks are making a difference. Patriotswitch.com. When you go to patriotswitch.com today, you're going to put in your name, put in your cell phone number and your email, and we'll get in contact with you. It may even be me. You never know. But somebody like me, not somebody from a faraway, different foreign country with an accent you can't understand. Somebody, another, will be calling you and sharing with you how we have made the switch. In fact, my family, we've made the switch. It's been months now. 6 months, almost half a year. Since February, we made the switch. And we couldn't be happier. When you go to patriotswitch.com, put in your name, your number, your cell phone, your email, and of course, select my name from the growing list of patriots that are sharing the word. You're going to help support the great cause of Patriot-owned organizations. And of course, you're going to support this broadcast and whatever we do. Help us get these stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Patriotswitch.com. That's patriotswitch.com. Lots to cover today. And in fact, I said we've got a ton of it. Let's start with Hunter, because this thing is what kicked off most of the story that we heard this morning about the FBI. This FBI agent who worked on behalf of, it looks like the Bidens, the Clintons, the Obamas even at one point. The Obamas maybe still today. To suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. Somebody asked about it yesterday or a day before, and I thought, it's a good point. Let me see if I can scare something up. There's a new movie coming out called My Son Hunter. Here's the trailer. I don't know if you've seen this yet. Kind of interesting stuff.
So I'll tell you what's going down. You know who I am.
They told me you were VIP, well connected to the government.
What kind of a moron forgets to pick up his laptop at a repair shop? You're a Biden. Act like one. Everything he built, his life, I just ruined it all. I want to know everything that's on that laptop that can ruin my erection. My friends, it's time to party!
Didn't you know I'm taking control? I'm making appearance and I gotta go, cause I get them dancing with their hands up. Yeah, walking and they go bananas. I'm a bad guy.
I'm an artist.
Tell me how I can help you.
I don't deserve help. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I've been through worse.
You're the smartest man I know. Thanks, Dad. I just wish I could smack some sense into you. I'll never forget Corey Bob. He was a bad dude. No joke. Dad, we were talking about suffering.
I can't seem to find anything but positive stuff on the
Lord
Bidens.
Bob.
Who's the point man for the foreign policy in the Obama regime? Joe Biden. So it looks like you need $1 billion.
So the obvious next question is,
Where's Hunter? I can remember getting paid some money, but I can't remember what for. Well, my dad says we never discuss my businesses, period. Or my cut.
what's happening in there? Joe's in on it.
Party's over!
You had everything, Hunter, and you threw it all away. You hope the laptop will take down everybody with you.
Get out! China's not our enemy. They're not bad folks. I love my dad, and I just want to make him proud. I am the one who brings in all the deals. I am the one. Good boy.
Wow. I want to tell you, culture is, let me put it better this way. Counterculture is here. That's a very well produced production, whatever the film, whatever you want to call it. That's a very well produced film. And there will be people that watch that film that will never watch the news, that will never watch or listen to a podcast, and never get involved in any of the discussions that you and I have on a daily basis, but they would watch that film and it would start to turn the wheels. I think people are going to start to wake up in ways that we've never even considered before. You know what else is going to move the needle? We're starting to see it happening now. The counterculture is being birthed. By the way, you want to see that trailer? I put it up on the stack a little later on today at justinbarclay.com. And in locals, you'll be able to get it. I put all my stuff up there so you can see everything. justinbarclay.com/locals. But the other thing that's really, I think, going to turn the tide is people like, believe it or not, Joe Rogan. The conversation he had the other day with Alex Berenson, and then he says something very poignant.
No one who is alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it.
So what do you tell those people?
Vote Republican.
Joe Rogan, vote Republican. Now, look, he makes a good point. I think folks are starting to wake up. These are average, everyday people, and these aren't people that really paid attention to politics before. These are people that, they're just regular people. They don't really get into all the machinations, right? They don't get into all of the geeky kind of nerding out on politics like some of us do. Great conversation on Joe Rogan's podcast and Joe Rogan Experience. That's with Aaron Rodgers. Again, another guy, just a normal, average, everyday guy who happens to be an MVP, Hall of Famer football player, quarterback. But just a normal guy who's having conversations like you and I, like everybody else, they wanted him to take the jab. He said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm a healthy guy. I don't need to do that. Now, look, I'm not going to agree with Joe on everything. I'm not agree with Aaron Rodgers on everything. We're not going to agree with anybody on everything. The world would be a boring place if we did. But these are little rays of hope. These are little rays of light that are poking through the darkness, that are piercing it. The counterculture is here. And you know what's funny? The counterculture is people that I saw this meme the other day. Go out. Get married, have kids, go to church, simple stuff, grow a garden. These are countercultural things to do now, but these are things that they're saying, go out, do these things, be a rebel. It's true. It's funny, but these aren't rebellious. They may be rebellious from the culture that today, but the culture that today is rebellious. These are traditional things. Folks, the pendulum is swinging back. God bless. I'm glad that it is. Because we need it now more than ever. It's so funny, this redacted report that was released. We're so supposed to believe Trump's the criminal. Biden's out there calling anybody that voted for Trump or MAGAs semi-fascist. That's like 70 million at the very least, according to the vote tally they put out. 70 million people. Semi-fascist? Man, oh man. But I got to tell you, I just think people are done with this. Speaking of counterculture and when it all kind of shifted, another great podcast, the other Glenn Beck had Rob Schneider on, former SNL member, funny guy, but talking about very serious subjects. This is where he says he realized the moment that it all changed for SNL, that it went down the drain.
Things as I travel around this country and try to perform and, not indoctrinate people like some comedy shows seem to be doing these days.
Not Saturday Night Live.
Well, I mean, I hate to crap on my old show. But when Hillary Clinton lost, which is understandable.
Yes.
Not exactly the most likable person in the room.
Right.
And then when Kate McKinnon went out there on Saturday Night Live from the cold opening, and I was like, she started dressed as Hillary Clinton and she starts playing Hallelujah. And I said, I literally prayed, please have a joke at the end. Don't do this. Please don't go down there. And there was no joke at the end. And I went, it's over. It's over. These not going to come back. And it
really is the end of.
It's gone. You can take the comedy routines, the comedy routines. You can take the comedic indoctrination process happening with each of the late night hosts, and you could exchange them with each other. That's how you know that's not interesting anymore. Because it's not an independent voice anymore. It's just all indoctrination by comedic imposition.
That's great. You see folks that are standing up and saying, look, I mean, everything that was great about some of the things that we love the most at different times have completely turned. I did a really interesting interview. I would say go back and watch both those if you get a moment. He made another point. Rob Schneider on with Glenn Beck the other day on his podcast made another point about why all of this matters and why people are standing up and what they're really fighting for. Glenn asked Rob at one point, are you willing to lose it all?
Are you willing to lose it all for what you believe?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have it, then we have nothing. I don't care about my career anymore. I care about my children's,
me too,
the country that they're going to live in. And my hope is this. My hope is a beautiful story from a chaplain in England. When the American flyers came over in the early days of World War II, when the American flyers came over this is like the dog days, 1942, late 42, when like Their friends were getting blown out of the sky. They would go over on the bombers and half would come back, 2/3 would come back, but they were dying. And there was one particularly awful week, 2 weeks, where there was a very high percentage of these pilots were getting blown out of the sky and getting killed. And they went to the prison. They went to the Air Force chaplain, and the pilot said, "Why?" I said, "Our friends are dying. Why should we do this? Why should we get up tomorrow and fly?" They did this at like literally 4:45. It's supposed to leave 5:30. Why should we do this? Tell us why. They didn't say they weren't going to do it. So tell us why we should do this. Our friends are dying. Tell us. And the chaplain was really, woke up and said, well, humanity has come out of the dark ages. We've come out of where people get burned at the stake. People believe and go along with this. And there's a darkness that we have come out of and doing a more of an enlightened period, a more freer period. And he said, this is a step back into those darkness, into the darkest parts of humanity. And we need to stand up for that now. And that requires this. So they all flew.
We are there again.
Yeah, and it requires a new set of flyers.
Are you ready to fly? Are you willing to do what it takes? These are, great conversations to have. They're great questions to ask, because I don't know about you, but I've just gotten to the point where I have decided, yes, Lord. Yes. Whatever he asks, I will do. And I'm not sure, people ask, what's your plan? Somebody asked me this weekend. What's your plan for the next few years? What do you want to do? What's your long-term goal? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where it all goes. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I really wish I had a roadmap. I really wish I could see the final destination. Well, I know how it all ends. And I know my final destination. But I'm talking about the here and now. I wish I could see where it all goes today. But really, I guess all we really need is the next step. We just only need the next step. So I have been, I've actually been reading a book lately and been listening to it. I've talked about a little bit of this, but I shared on a Locals and in my good newsletter. If you're not a part of either one, please go join up. JustinBarclay.com/locals, or my good newsletter. When you go to my website, you can click there. But watching, listening to, and going through this book called Whisper by Mark Batterson. Whisper. It's all about hearing God's voice and hearing from God. And sometimes he makes the point. Oftentimes, it's not a big booming voice, although I think in the Bible it was at one point. I think Moses was leading people out of Egypt, and they heard the big booming voice of God. And it was so much, it was too much. They actually came to him and said, please, whatever he did, whatever that was, tell him not to do it again, because it's too much. It was way too much. They were scared beyond, just beyond anything that they'd ever experienced before. So he makes the case in this book that oftentimes God's voice comes from a whisper. It comes through various different ways. He breaks down the several different ways that we hear from God. I highly recommend the book, Mark Batterson, How to Hear the Voice of God. I believe in the coming days, you and I are going to want to hear from him more and more. Because if we look at the world, the constant chaos, the confusion, the division, all of these things, to a certain extent, will continue to get worse before they get better. I can't tell you exactly what the plan is. I can't tell you exactly where it's going, but I will tell you that they will get worse before they get better. And to make it through all of that, you got to prepare. Diana says God is a just-in-time production manager. That's a really good way to put it. Just in time. You know, I'm actually writing my follow-up to good news right now. And in the coming days, I'll have some more good news for you about what's coming next in that book. But one of the things I'm writing about is one of my best friends in the entire world talks about all the things that he's seen in his life, and we often kind of talk back and forth about. God comes a lot of times at the last possible moment. Diana says just in time. He calls it the God of 11:59:59. We serve a God of 11:59:59. So the last minute, right before the clock strikes midnight, so to speak. But I think I like just in time even better. We saw that with our daughter. She was born, as Manny would say, early, 27 weeks. But I have a feeling that she was born just in time. In fact, it was right on time, God's time. I don't know why, but there was a reason why she needed to be born early. It seems to me. We had a bit of a conversation with the doctor who had given us some indication that she had been born because of some certain things that they discovered at a later point, that if she had been born full term, she didn't know what the outcome would be. So I know there's a lot of us that are wrapped up that get constantly caught up in wanting to know answers. How's this going to work out? How's that going to work out? And I think that's just a human nature. That's just, we want to know the answers, but we can't. We can't possibly fathom what God's plan. We can't possibly really and truly understand it all. I don't think we're capable. When we look back, Steve Jobs used to say you can connect the dots. He said this in his famous Stanford speech, and I talked about this in my first book. Looking back, you can see the dots connect. You can see God's hand working through it all. I've seen that in my life. So I know that God has a plan. I don't necessarily know what all of it is, but all I'm asking these days is show me the way. Show me the next step. And that I may have the courage to take whatever step it is. My good friend Joe, Justin, we don't have to understand God's plan. We just need to trust it. Amen. Tammy says, God is in control. Joan says, God speaks to us through his word. That is certainly one of the most powerful ways I've found. To really hear from God, we've got to be in the word. And the word has got to be in us. Patty says, read scripture, know his voice because the devil whispers also. Oh, yeah. And by the way, we'll recommend this book. There's talk about some of those things. How do you discern what is what? Really important. Yeah, because we're hearing lots of whispers from different places these days, aren't we? Yeah. It's important stuff. So I'll have some good news on that in the coming days, or as I said, some more good news. Karen says, can you post that book and author? Yes, I'll post it on Locals in our stack so you can see that at the stack, justinbarclay.com/locals. I'll post it up later. You can have that link to that. I am listening to the audiobook right now, but the actual book, I'm sure, is just as good. Don makes a great point. If you knew and saw your next steps, then you wouldn't need faith. Isn't that something that's very true? You wouldn't need faith. I think that's what makes it all possible. Joanne says, yes, my grandson was born at 28 weeks, and he's the joy of our lives. Sean said, Justin, the same thing was done when my daughter was born and was in the NICU for a month. You know, it's really interesting. I saw a tweet today. This person writes, in today's Detroit news, Democrats voice support for abortion at 28 weeks. I'm the mom of a rare premature twin, she said. Doctors admitted me to the hospital at 24 weeks for constant monitoring because my babies were considered viable. 28 weeks was considered a goal by the doctors. The docs prepared me that at 24 weeks, my twins could be born via emergency C-section at any moment. We spent months at the hospital monitoring them in the womb and then in the NICU. Premature babies have survived as early as 21 weeks. These lives matter and are worth saving. Science and medicine has come so far in such a short amount of time when it comes to premature babies. The medicine used to save my twins when they were born with underdeveloped lungs was only a few years old at the time. September is NICU Awareness Month. I usually save this for NICU month, but here's our NICU to now pictures. Follow the science. Save the babies. It's an incredible story. It's an incredible story. And we share very similar story ourselves and our little girl born at 27 weeks. But look at these just adorable twins. So grateful for the skilled hands of the folks working there at the NICU. And I am grateful for God's hand in it all too. They are a powerful testament, aren't they, to what is really possible and the God's plans. Man. So how about a Rona report? Do we want to get into a little bit of a Rona report here? Run things down for you, tell you what's happening. Lots to cover. I think we've covered a lot of ground so far today and some things that, were important, but maybe you get a chance to cover it all. But do our best to cover as much as we can. For the High Priest of Health, Mr. Booster, St. Anthony of Wuhan, Tony Fauci! Yes, folks, we're at it again. And I think we've got some Fauci news. Yeah, let me see if I can pull some of this out. Fauci news for you. Let me see, pull some of this Fauci news. The Fauci ouchie news for sure. Got some of that as well. Here we go. Oh, man, I just got stacks today in the stack. I can tell you that much. Breaking through some of it here. The mice. The Mises. Let's go through it. Let's see. What do we have? Oh, yes. TCTMD ran a story last week. Headline, myocarditis risk low overall after the jab, but higher in some groups. It's a lot of blah, blah, blah. Coffee and COVID's Jeff Childers says, word salad about a new study, but it finally admits that myocarditis risk is much higher in one tiny cohort, all men under 40. Oh, you mean folks in the military? Forced to get this jab. It's a national security issue, and it will never be addressed. Or at least it hasn't yet. The folks who are in charge at this point don't want it to be addressed. The paper tentatively suggested that some people might want to consider the pros and cons. One expert quoted the story who chairs the American Medical Association's pediatric committee. He said this: these results allow for a frank, transparent discussion on the pros and cons of vaccination. Wait a minute. We're allowed to have a frank and transparent discussion now? Now we're allowed to look at this information? Now we're allowed to talk about it? We're allowed to have these conversations now. We did, because earlier, previously, we couldn't talk about these things. No, it's just too much. In fact, you could be canceled. You should be canceled, as far as some of the folks considered. You should be canceled if you have any conversation like this. You've got to be canceled. We can't have you just talking about whatever you want to talk about, talking about these things. No, you can't talk about stuff like this. See, folks, there are some things that you just can't talk about. Don't you find that interesting? There are some things you're just not allowed to say. The FBI involved with the Facebook and the Hunter Biden, you said things you're not allowed to know about. They want you kept in the darkness on. And here we have it. Just another story, a situation, another day where they're saying, oh, now we can finally talk about this. Now it's okay. So there are people that control what you can and can't talk about. Now it's fine to have a frank and transparent discussion. Where is that going to take place? I know YouTube has opened up now a little bit of the masking stuff. They've opened up to that. Do you see Lester Holt, the Nightly News, talking about this story or having a frank discussion at all? You see it taking place? Is that happening? Is Lester going to have that conversation? I don't think so. Is our local news station, are they going to have that conversation? No, probably not. We're the only place, one of the very rare places where you can do that. And I mean, sir, no connection whatsoever. So anybody that would think about this and say, well, this is they're connected, you're just a conspiracy theorist, you get your tinfoil hat, take that thing off, put it away. The Miami Dolphins are heartbroken. Heartbroken to announce the sudden death and unexpected of 47-year-old Jason Jenkins, Miami Dolphins Senior Vice President of Communications and Community Affairs. He died suddenly and unexpectedly on Saturday, according to a team announcement. Coach Mike McDaniel told reporters that Jason was previously completely healthy. This was a healthy guy that just brought it every day, just full of life, McDaniel said. That's the hardest part. There's just no words to describe. He was a great family man. His wife's awesome. His children. It's tough. It's a tough one to swallow. He will be missed. He will not be forgotten. He says, I can tell you that much. Well, maybe we could start with finding out what exactly happened here. Be a good conversation at the very least. Find out, hope he's not forgotten. Find out maybe what happened. Maybe we just have a conversation, Maybe somebody would be interested in why a completely healthy man in the prime of his life would kill over suddenly and unexpectedly, and why they are doing this in great numbers right now. But listen, don't be a conspiracy theorist. Why don't you? I mean, just don't even think of it. Connecting this story to anything that's safe and effective. New York Post ran a story over the weekend headline, latest booster jabs. Boosters will be released before human testing is complete. Wait a minute. Wait just a minute. You're telling me we're still doing this? The latest boosters will be released before human testing is complete. If this is true, I guess we don't need an FDA anymore, do we? Now, that's a serious question. Why do we need the FDA anymore? Just put out the drug. They're safe and effective. Put out whatever it is. Put it out. We don't need anybody to oversee it. They're like magic now, these pokes, these pricks. I'm not talking about Fauci. I'm talking about the jab. We don't need to test them. What a silly idea. They're safe and effective, because they say so. Who? The government, corporate media, the folks that we're supposed to trust. And yeah, it's very trustworthy individuals. They are being tested. Annette makes the great point. We are the human trial portion. We are the test. We are the lab rats. Some of us, anyway. According to FDA Commissioner Dr. Robert Califf, instead of waiting for data from testing in humans, the agency will use data from mice trials. Mice trials. Real-world evidence of the safety of current COVID jabs and test results from boosters targeting older strains to evaluate the new and improved boosters. They have mouse data. Coffee and COVID's Jeff Childress says not everyone is thrilled, though. The Post quotes vaccine expert Paul Offit from the FDA Sideline Vaccine Approval Committee as being hesitant to approve the new jabs. He says, I'm uncomfortable that we would move forward, that we would give millions or tens of millions of doses to people based on mouse data. Paul wrote in a Wall Street Journal op-ed in June, it's like the punchline to a joke. The Post also reported that Pfizer and Moderna both said the newest shots are safe and effective, so you can trust them. Anyone else feel like the government is completely schizophrenic at this point? Over at the CDC, the emergency's all over. All mitigations have been dropped. Vaccinated and unvaccinated share equal status. But at the FDA, the emergency is burning so hot they can't wait a couple of months for human trials to finish to approve jabs for millions of Americans. So which is it? Is it an emergency or isn't it? Coffee and COVID's Jeff Childress makes a great point. Last week, the UK government quietly revised its vaccine guidance, pivoted with respect to the pregnant and breastfeeding women. I mean, breastfeeding people, excuse me. And now I hear it's chest feeding. So, here's what they say. It is considered that sufficient reassurance of safe use of the jab in pregnant women cannot be provided at the present time. Healthcare professionals are advised to rule out known or suspected pregnancy prior to vaccination. Women who are breastfeeding should also not be vaccinated. This is the UK now. What do you say to all those women who got the jab because they were telling them that it's safe and effective? Carol says, is this number 5 on the booster? I don't know. I can't keep up. People are out there running, clamoring for these things. And meanwhile, some of us has never even been tested, never even been swabbed. So you don't have to play around. You don't have to play along with all this. You don't have to. You don't have to. You have a choice. On Friday, a split decision in the 11th Federal Circuit Court partially upheld and partially dropped the injunction against the federal contractor COVID jab mandate. The dissenting judge, a Carter appointee, wrote that he thinks the federal government has clear authority to order the mandate whenever it wants. But the judge writing for the majority, a Trump appointee, upheld the injunction, but held that enjoining the entire country was overbroad, he said. Reduced its effect to just 7 states who joined the lawsuit, plus the Associate Builders and Contractors Union, which also joined. It is partially good news. Although this means the Biden administration could restart the mandate in other states, reports say officials are still considering what will happen next. They'll probably keep considering it at least until after the midterms. Last week, Florida federal judge Stephen Merriday enjoined the entire Marine Corps from enacting the military mandate against any soldier asserting a religious objection to the jab. Props to the heroic lawyers who litigated the case, he says. That's great news. The very last report on COVID outcomes by vaccine status from the Canadian province of Manitoba from May doesn't look too good if you take the deaths category, add fully vaccinated to booster deaths, then compare that to unvaccinated deaths. Keep in mind, they're probably pumping up the unvaccinated numbers by including single shotters and folks not past 30 days after the second dose. Corporate media, of course, completely ignored the data's ramifications or even suggestions, but Alex Berenson wrote a short stack about it. Then immediately after publishing the May report, Manitoba Public Health decided, for some reason yet to be explained, to stop reporting the data. Must have got a lot of questions about that because the latest report for August includes this brief disclaimer. Quote, monthly updates about severe outcomes after vaccination have been discontinued starting week 31, July 31st through August 6th. Manitoba Health will continue to monitor COVID-19 vaccination effectiveness and report. See, there's some things you just can't know, folks. There's some things you're just not allowed to know. You can't know these things because if you did, you might be able to make some better decisions. They don't want that. They want you to constantly and continually be controlled. This out of Michigan, as I promised earlier today, exclusive state of Michigan withholding detailed report on the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll see if I can pull some of this up for you so that you can see. I had never heard of these folks before, and I had to take a look. Now, I try to look at everything. But I thought this is an interesting report, so I went and did some background digging and found. See if I can find it. When was this done? It was done this month. There it is, right on the front page. Website called Michigan News Source. So I did some digging and confirmed with somebody else who's following this, another reporter. Exclusive state of Michigan withholding detailed report on the COVID-19 pandemic response. Of course, this is Whitmer and the Whitmer crime family withholding detailed report on the pandemic response. Well, what are you talking about? What exactly do you mean? What happened there? Well, very simple. They report the Whitmer administration hired an out-of-state company to conduct an in-depth after-action report on the state's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So you want to get a third party to take a look at how did we do? The draft report evaluated all departments and resources utilized to address the pandemic beginning in early 2020. However, despite being completed, the draft report has not been released to the public or the media so far. The company hired for the after-action review, Tidal Basin of Utica, New York, completed a draft report examining Michigan's response in the past few weeks, and it's circulating inside the administration right now. The report is said to be nearly 300 pages in length and breaks down the state of Michigan's response on nearly all levels to the pandemic. Some of the information contained in the report may be at odds with what has been publicly reported on the pandemic to date, according to comments given to the Michigan news source, folks. It could also raise further questions about how Governor Gretchen Whitmer handled nursing home patients and the millions of dollars spent on emergency facilities in Novi and Detroit that in the end were not utilized. Michigan news source learned the report is so sensitive that there has already been a, quote, stakeholders meeting, that's communism speak, that included numerous state agencies that were involved with various efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the CYA in action, folks. M&S, Michigan news source, told state departments were each issued portions relevant to their response to the pandemic in the draft report to review and correct any possible errors. This draft report also raises several other questions. Why would the Whitmer administration go to an out-of-state company to conduct such a review when such efforts are usually handled by the Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division of the Michigan State Police? The EMHSD is the point of contact for the governor's office and FEMA on the federal level. For all disaster-related events, the EMHSD is run by Captain Kevin Sweeney. Hiring an out-of-state firm to conduct a review also raises the question of how much taxpayer money was spent on the effort, and more importantly, why is the report still not being released? Michigan News Source has filed a Freedom of Information Act for a full unredacted copy of the draft report, but so far hasn't made it available. Whitmer needs to make it available immediately. Immediately, if not sooner. We need to know what you and I already know. The confirmation of what you and I already know and know to be true. This was a botched handling. A botched handling of it all. And in fact, some might say it was intentional, some of the things that were done. Deucey out there asking the tough questions that nobody else wants to ask. Just like this question, we'll give you the answer as soon as we hear it. Of course, we want to know more about what's happening. This is something that we need to hear about immediately, if not sooner. But Deucey asking those questions that I think are worth answering from KJP Karine Jean-Pierre. That's how you say it, the French accent. Asking those questions the other day in a press conference.
Protocols, I'd refer you to them. They have their own specific protocols as well. So they're two different things. They're two different things.
But so how is it two different things? Somebody unvaccinated comes over on a plane. You say that's not okay. Somebody walks into Texas or Arizona unvaccinated. They're allowed to stay. Why?
But that's not how it works. Like we actually, no.
I know that that's not what you guys want to happen, but that is what is happening.
But that's not, it's not like somebody walks over and that's not how.
Exactly what's happening. Thousands of people.
Yeah, well, how are they getting here?
Some of them turn themselves over. Some of them are caught. Tens of thousands a week are not. That is what is happening.
So let me just lay out what we have done under this administration.
No.
We have installed new border technology and set up joint protocols with Mexico and Guatemala
BS.
to catch more human traffickers. We have already made over 3,000 arrests in the first 3 months of launching an unprecedented anti-smuggling campaign with regional partners. We've secured record levels of funding for the Department of Homeland Security.
It's all CYA BS stuff. None of this is And let me just lay out what we've done. Let me just, if I may, let me just lay out. Let me just tell you what we've been up to. Word salad. Census Bureau, 3.8 million Americans will likely be evicted in the next 2 months. The Biden effect, they call it. Rising rents mean that households represent a total of 8.5 million people behind on their rent at the end of August. 20 million on their electric bills. Remember I told you that stat the other day? And this is just starting. 3.5 million Americans will likely be evicted in the next 2 months. 8.5 million Americans behind on their rent in August. The combination of soaring inflation, it just means the cost of everything going through the roof, the end of most eviction moratoriums and rental assistance payments, an extremely low vacancy rate has pushed rents up and many renters out. Rents are up nearly 25% since before the pandemic. Since 2006, rents have risen faster than home prices, but at the same time, the shortage of available rental units has been steadily increasing since the Great Recession. In the year before the pandemic, the country recorded a shortage of 7 million affordable housing units for low-income renters. According to the Center of American Progress, creating a crisis left 37 affordable rental homes for every 100 low-income housing or households, rather, looking to rent. The homes that are available are often still out of reach. Rent rates are up 25% since before the pandemic. Evictions are up too. According to Eviction Lab at Princeton University in August, evictions up 52% above average in Tampa, 90% above average in Houston, and 94% above average in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I don't know what's coming, folks, but I say be prepared. Every day I tell you, not just to prepare physically, but to prepare your soul as well. But we ought to think about it. It's been an inflation hedge in some ways. Storable food. The folks at My Patriots Supply, you go to preparewithjustin.com to get stocked up. They've got all kinds of great deals right now. At the day and age that people are raising prices, they've actually dropped them. Save up to 67% off their overstock sale, and you could save $250, the lowest price in 3 years on their 3-month emergency food supply. They just want you to be ready. They want you and your family to be ready no matter what happens. Lasts up to 25 years in storage, 2,000 calories per day. Preparewithjustin.com. You go to preparewithjustin.com. They've got several, options there. They got some financing too. I don't recommend things like that all the time, but I got to tell you, there may come a time when you need to eat. Your family needs to eat. And you'll be able to. You'll be able to because you were prepared. You'll have some peace of mind because you were ready. Some good news before we get out of here today. Some good news. Antifa, radical leftists, tried to shut down a parade, a big event. Not that they were all about tolerance, these people. Apparently not. Antifa, radical left, trying to shut down straight pride event. You heard that right. I said it. Straight pride event? You can't make this stuff up. It's trolling on the highest levels, but wow. They tried to shut down a straight pride event in Modesto, California over the weekend. Cops in riot gear also showed up and reportedly fired pepper spray bullets and beanbags at the enraged counter-protesters who were forced to retreat from their unlawful assembly. It's really interesting. Let me see if I can find some of the video here. Look at it. Oh, my goodness. Apparently, this took place outside of an abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood in California.
Unlawful assembly. And in the name of the people of the state of California, I command all those present assembled at this location in front of Planned Parenthood to immediately disperse.
Look at the folks on the left, the wackos on the left.
Go south from here. Everyone in front of Planned Parenthood, go south.
Do you see that sign? Straight pride is hate pride. Man, this is just wild. This is California. This is California for you. There's a flyer that was put out. It's almost time. Here's more info on how to counter straight pride, the upcoming homophobic anti-abortion hate rally in Modesto. Let's get ready to drown them out and shut them down. No tolerance for hate and bigotry. We'll see you in the streets. That's from Antifa Sacramento. Fourth consecutive year that the straight pride demonstrators gathered in front of the Planned Parenthood building on McHenry, according to the Sacramento Bee, adding that like last year, violence broke out. In fact, the paper said things got physical nearly 2 hours before the event, even scheduled to begin at noon on Saturday. The Bee reported that a scuffle broke out when a Proud Boy tried pushing past police, citing a straight pride supporter named Richard, who didn't identify as a Proud Boy. Counter-protesters threw water bottles in retaliation, the Bee said. This is just crazy. I don't know. First of all, I don't know I'd be participating in a straight pride event at all, but there are people that want to get in the mix and in the streets and want to fight over these things. And man, you know, look, obviously there's more to this. But, you know, Planned Parenthood now, especially in Michigan, it's not just abortions. They're also engaging in some of the trans procedures as well. Laura says, I'm ready for the aliens to come take me to their... Oh, you and me both, Laura. You and me both. I'm ready. But I think what I'm really ready for Jesus to come back. That's what I think more than anything. Come quickly. Come back, Jesus. We just can't. It's just good. I mean, we can't do this anymore. Look at where we are. Masked man breaks into apartment in the middle of the night. Comes face to face with gun-toting resident who shoots him dead. A good guy with a gun. Able to defend his home, his family, property. Good guy with a gun. Well, you're told that there is no such thing, but not in this case. A man able to defend himself. Masked man breaking into a Madison, Wisconsin apartment in the middle of the night last week, but was met by an armed resident who shot him dead. Police called to the scene in 1700 block of Packers Avenue around 2:30 a.m. Friday after someone that reported a masked man broke into the apartment and shots were fired. A man waiting outside for police directed them into the apartment where officers found a shot man who was soon pronounced dead. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes said during a news conference, a woman and child inside the apartment when officers arrived. So he not only protected himself, but a woman and a child as well. All three were inside the apartment at the time of the break-in. This man, good guy with a gun, able to protect them all. It isn't clear whether they knew the intruder, the station said. Multiple reports did not indicate which resident pulled the trigger. Barnes said detectives found evidence of forced entry and are trying to figure out why the intruder targeted the apartment and whether he had accomplices. Multiple guns found inside. Good, he was prepared. Detectives haven't determined whether the intruder was armed at the time of the break-in. There you have it. Good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun. They don't want you to know certain things, and they definitely don't want you to be able to protect yourself. Imagine that. Folks, things are heating up in the war, the culture war we talked about today, and some of the other things as well. If you haven't already done it, go on over to justinbarclay.com/locals. A great way to support us. Number one, we can stay in touch. It's free. It's free to join. Join Locals. Be able to stay updated and up to date on what we're doing. In touch with us. But also there is a support feature as well. People have asked about this. What can I do to support you? In fact, I've had multiple folks in the last week ask, what can I do to support? How can I donate? What can I do to make sure that I keep you on the podcast, doing the show here, and of course, sharing these stories? It's important. If you go to my website, you'll be able to click the link and join Locals. Join me there. There's also a donation link below. And this is for a one-time donation. We may do more later, but it's for a one-time donation. You can help support the after show and any of the digital things that we do. Help us make a bigger impact. If you want to just donate a few bucks or a big donation, you can do that. But folks had asked for it, and I wanted to make sure that we at least put it out there for you so that you had the option. I'm not begging for donations, but I just wanted you to know that you have the option to do it. I think it's very important for us to stay up to date with each other, especially when it comes to Locals. So please join us over there. It is free. If you choose to support us and become a member, that's great too. I really appreciate that. In fact, I want to give some of these folks a shout out before we get done here today. Sherry's cleaning. I love you, Sherry. Thank you so much. She's joined us on Locals. 3 grandchildren joining us on Locals. Imlaki 2 joining us on Locals and supporting. You can make a one-time donation there as well, or you can become a member, a yearly donation as well. Rayanne, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Debbie, Palace Manager, so many folks who are joining. We'd love to see you over on Locals, and you can join too if you go to justinbarclay.com. Just click that link. It'll take you right there. It's important we stick together, folks, no matter what. I'll tell you this. No matter how things go, no matter what we face, we know that God is still on the throne. And you and I are not alone. Appreciate you always. Back tomorrow morning at 9:06, God willing, for another big fired up show right here. Make it a great day, folks. God bless.